Hi, welcome to the Everyday Magic Podcast. I'm Anya Rock.
And I'm Dr. Sophia Trivena.
Today is a special day because we're filming on Galentine's Day. And we are also celebrating something very special in Sophia's world that I'll let her tell you about.
Thank you. It's the reason why we have our little cupcakes with strawberries. Galentine's Day, of course, which we already left each other our roses outside of our doors for when we came home, which I love that we have this day that we hold so sacred together. And also, it's my grandpa's birthday, Grandpa Vern. Mm-hmm. And as you know, I talk to him on video almost every day for a decade. Very special in my heart. And it's the first birthday with him on the other side. So it's a beautiful one. It's a tearful one. Mm-hmm. And I love that we have the strawberries because his favorite thing in the world was the St. Thomas, Ontario, where I'm from, strawberry social. And he would tell me, weeks in advance, I got my ticket for the strawberry social, 2 weeks to the strawberry social, 1 week. And when he crossed, I was with you. Mm-hmm. We were out in the world. We just finished brunch and I got the phone call. Mm-hmm. And you were just right by my side as you are. And it was just this real, paradigm, like end of an era, like, wow, now I'm in the world without Grandpa. And he's 96. Mm-hmm. So, and one of my best friends. Really, there's nothing like chatting with him on, video every day. And to honor him, I had a strawberry social. So I invited you and a couple other girlfriends, came over for a surprise, and I had created quite the spread of everything possible strawberry in the world of the grocery store.
It was a beautiful spread.
Anything I could, and floating strawberries and water and everything. Mm-hmm. And so when I got my Galentine's gift from you yesterday, I'm going to cry. And I opened it, and the card you had strawberries all over it. And you said, happy.
What are the chances?
You found a Galentine's Day card with strawberries on them. I mean, unbelievable. And then, so I told Teresa, our makeup artist, this morning while she was doing my makeup, that she's the only person I could let put this much makeup on me. And I'd only do it for you. And I told her about the strawberry social. And this is before our videographer came in. And then 10 minutes later, he came in, he's setting up, and asked him what's new with him. And he's like, I went picking strawberries. Do you finally understand now? And Teresa's like, share it when you guys film. And I'm sharing it now. It's like, Grandpa was saying hi. Mm-hmm. And Teresa also started crying. Like, it's just, and I looked at her and I said, this is everyday magic. Mm-hmm. These are the little moments that if we're paying attention, things beyond us are speaking to us, like my grandpa today.
Yeah. And I remember that day because you have a really special relationship with people who've crossed.
Yes.
And like your brother who passed away 10 years ago, and other very close friends who you keep really close as your guides.
Yes.
And this was the first time someone had crossed and was not going to be kind of by your side as a guide. Yeah. And it was, I remember saying to you, like, this is really you experiencing death the way the rest of us do, us mere mortals, right? That we experience death, and that it was very different.
Yeah, very different.
But he does show up and send you signs, and as I think we all experience for those who've crossed.
Yes. Factually, every person that crosses sends the people they love a sign. Mm. It's just fact. And I had that from my grandpa, and knowing that, I asked him before he died, and I said, Grandpa, when you're on the other side, what signals do you want to send me? Mm. And he said, what do you mean signals? And I said, well, and I told him some examples of me and my brother. Mm-hmm. So my brother and I, when we were roommates in Hawaii for a few years when we were in our 30s, I had this number 47, and he had the number 72 for the year he was born. Mm. And one day he comes home and he's like, sis, 472 is our number together. That's both of us. And I said, while I'm at school, I'm going to think of you and see if, that number comes up. And he's like, but it's not on the clock. And I said, let's do any combo of 472, 742, so it could be a time. And he told me, I looked at the clock, it was 2:47, and I said, great, just before my 3 p.m. class, I had sent you a mental signals. He and I practiced this. Being 1 year apart, almost twins, we had this connection, both Libras, we just had this connection. And so that was our number. And so when my brother died in a motorcycle accident 10 years ago, I have seen 427, 742. I got the bank card for our shared bank account for Sofanya, my first joint bank account with anyone. And the first 6 letters were all 4s and 7s and 2s, all of them. So my brother's always sending these signals. So I say to my grandpa about a year ago, because it's only been since, maybe 6 or 8 months since he died, I said, what signals do you want? And I tell him the whole story of Joe and I and how Joe sends me 472. And Grandpa instantly says 13. And I say, because it's Taylor Swift's favorite number.
Clearly.
Okay, I didn't say that. He'd be like, who's Taylor Swift? I'd be like, Grandpa. Which I loved things like this. I'm like, I'm hanging command hooks. He's like, what are those? I'm like, Grandpa, let me show you what's happened in the world of hooks. I was always showing him the things. And I did talk to him about Taylor, but I didn't go there because we're in a very serious conversation. And I said, why 13? And he said, it's my birthday. And I thought, great, it's also the divine feminine number. And so it just meant a lot to me that he chose that. He said, blue jay. And I said, any blue bird? And he said, no, blue jay, very Ontario hometown bird. And then he said, Dalmatians. And if you ever see me with videos of Grandpa that I would post sometimes, there's always Dalmatians around him. He loved them. When the Disney movie came out, he thought they were so cute. And I was like, I've never seen a Dalmatian in my life. I'm like, that's a hard one, Grandpa. Like, how am I ever going to see a Dalmatian? But okay. And I was like, if I see that, I'll really know you're saying hi to me. The day after he died, I got on the elevator in our building, and in comes a spotted dog with a man. And I spontaneously say, what kind of dog is that? He's like, he's a rescue, but I'm sure he's a Dalmatian. And I, of course, start crying.
Burst out in tears. The guy's like, I'm sorry.
Much like our videographer this morning when he was like, I went strawberry picking, and Teresa and I were like, oh my God. And we start crying. What is happening? So I just think it's a beautiful thing to share, that this is an everyday magic that everyone can tap into. And I've worked with clients that are going to cross soon, like one of our dear friends who crossed of cancer that we've known for 25 years. Her picture popped up on Facebook yesterday, and I really debated posting it. It was a bunch of the girls from the Toronto days that have been friends for 25 years, a dozen of us. And we all had our arms around her, and now she's with Grandpa. Grandpa's with her. She went first, actually. And I debated posting it, and I had to tune in, and I got a yes. So I was like, okay, there's a benefit to me posting this. And her mom instantly messaged on it and said how happy she was to see it and how much it meant to her to see that smile. And I just feel like when I was talking with her before she crossed, I had her talk with her children about what signs she would send them and to assure them that when a mother crosses, she never leaves her children, and really coaching her on how to have one of the most difficult conversations I think any human can have with any other human, like a mother who's about to cross. So for me, the relationship that we can continue with people when they're on the other side is available to all of us, especially when we put some consciousness around it or we know it's possible. So I'm really happy to share that message today.
Beautiful.
Thank you.
Beautiful. We have our strawberries.
You surprised me with strawberries and so this is something we can not eat while we talk.
Right.
But wish we were eating the whole time. And eat as soon as the cameras go. No, I'm just joking. Yeah.
And also, working on getting our podcast ready for Galentine's, like the 13th being the Goddess Day.
Yeah. And
Galentine's being kind of a reclamation of Valentine's Day for celebrating the feminine, for celebrating girlfriends.
Yep.
And how vital we are in each other's lives.
So much so. I love it. And I would love to talk a little bit about why 13 is the goddess number.
Sure.
What do you know about it?
Not that much.
I do.
Okay, great.
Shall I? Okay. The only reason is because I've been guided by the angels to follow the phases of the moon because there's actual nature energies that move through us with the phases of the moon. Much like with spring and summer and fall, there's just different energy. You want to go in and sort of hibernate in the winter, or in the summer, you just want to be out and about. Like there's real energy. And the moon phases are the same thing. And the goddess culture, which is the majority of human history, honored the moon cycles, and there's 13 moon cycles in a year. So the calendar in the goddess era was, really around the number 13. And then when that got squeezed out by patriarchy, just factually, without, getting into it, there was...
I'm sure we'll get into it.
Maybe. I have a couple things to say about it. I know you do too. For now.
We'll put a pin in it, but I'm sure we'll be back.
We'll be back for sure, and maybe a few times. But for this point of the conversation,
So
I'll simply say anything that was a goddess symbol became evil, bad, demonized, bad luck, and that power of 13 that had thousands of years of sacred reverence was turned into something that was scary and to be pushed away, or else, you could get into trouble energetically somehow. So reclaiming the number 13, and I think Taylor Swift does do that for us. And that happened to her too. I watched something where she was saying, I just kept seeing the number everywhere I went. The first time I got an award, the number of my chair was 13.
She's born on the 13th too.
That too.
December, I think.
That's true, actually.
Yeah.
So the goddess number
Swiftie,
13.
I mean, we've got to know these things.
Yes. You
Swiftie trivia is an essential part.
Sophanya is nothing without Swiftie trivia.
That's true. Yeah. So the 13 is a powerful number. And the goddess number and Galentine's.
And the day we launched our podcast. Yes. And I so commend you on this. We were guided the date to launch this podcast. We got it in a meeting. And when I saw the date and said it, it was just like, how are we going to do that in a couple months? All the production.
I think it was like 6 weeks ago.
No, 6 weeks. 6 weeks. Absolutely. And I will say, goddess, you sprung into Anya power action. And I posted it on Facebook today. If anyone knows you, they know what that means. It's like, look out. And I had to step out of the way because this is your wheelhouse. You understand this world more than me. I just show up with a lot of makeup on, wearing more than I ever have before and embracing it.
Yes.
And you did this. I feel like you just pulled all of this together, and I just get to show up and walk on a stage that you prepared and see the branding that you curated. And I'm so grateful. I think you're a genius. I'm so honored that you're my bestie and business partner, and we're business married and share a bank account.
It goes deep.
This is all you.
Thank you. Yeah, it was, it felt like, we're just going to keep working toward it and do our best. And it really did all come together magically. We got great people on board. We got the right team, and we held it as a vision. I held it as a vision. I think we as a team held it as a vision, knowing the world wasn't going to end if it wasn't today, but just holding that as a North Star and working toward it. And I remember so many people being like, wait, how are you going to do that? That's really soon. I'm like, yep, it's all good. We're going to do it. And we did. Yeah.
You're incredible.
Yeah, thank you. I received that.
I like watching you receive that. Yeah. I feel like you so deserve to be celebrated. And much like many amazing women I know, probably including myself, I'm getting excited. It's like, we're always on the task at hand, task at hand. What's the next thing? What's the next thing? And the stopping and celebrating. And in fact, can I talk about a study that I read?
Of course.
Can't help it. So they followed 700 projects that were successful and watched others that weren't and compared the two and what made them successful. And it was 4 areas, and one of the 4 was celebration. And if celebration wasn't part of it, it didn't make it cross the threshold of a successful project. And the ones that had a higher score of celebration were more successful.
Interesting.
It's not a small thing.
And it's not an easy thing to do, right? I do recognize even in myself, I'm like, oh yeah, okay, well we did it, but we're filming today, so let's keep going.
What does it feel like to slow down
and celebrate? I laid in bed this morning and really just thought about the studio, right? Creating, all the pieces of the studio, of creating all the decor.
These cupcakes and strawberries didn't just find themselves here. Someone was at the grocery store at 10 p.m. texting me.
Yeah. Yeah. And just really the power of orchestrating, right? Which is what I really feel like I did, was sort of orchestrate the pieces and trust they would all fall into place. And knowing that this was going to be such an important platform for us, and working through perfectionism and working through, all the parts. And I think you and I coming, it's no small thing for 2 very strong-willed, opinionated, successful women to come together on things and be like, well, what about this or what about that? And we have navigated all of that.
I think there's a few things to talk about there.
Yeah. And I think we do it really well. And at the end of the day, again, we always have that North Star of what are we working toward to create?
Right.
And so to finally see it last night, to be able to go on Apple, to go on Spotify and be like, oh my gosh, there it is. And there we are. And here we are.
Insanely proud of you.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Thanks.
I feel like I get the good grace of just showing up and having it all done for me in a way. And I'm so grateful.
Yeah.
Yeah. You really did
a bit of my zone of genius.
Yeah. And I love stepping aside and watching you. And that's why in this, mostly I'm just like, show me where, like, boss me around. This isn't mine. I really
don't know what that means. Tell me what that is. Stop talking to me like I know what you're talking about.
You're literally like, what do you think about this thumbnail or this? I'm like, I don't even know what you're talking about.
I'm like, never mind. I'll choose.
I'm like, great. That sounds perfect. Yeah, no, you really whipped it into shape. And I'd love to talk about the perfectionism because I feel like this is something that stops a lot of projects. I've been asked in my 10 years of leading a sustainability movement in Hawaii, when people asked me what was your superpower in making all that you made happen, I said, I never let perfect get in the way of good enough. And it's literally what kept the momentum and a lot of things existing, even though they weren't perfect. And I know that coming to Sofanya and a podcast is a different level than I've ever been at. In Los Angeles, I've never even been in the US mainland and been at this caliber of anything. So I know that you're showing me the ropes on that. And it takes a level of perfectionism I haven't honed and don't have. And so I'm just really curious about where perfectionism shows up for you and what your dance is with it.
Well, and I think that let's change the word perfectionism to one thing that you've acknowledged is that we and Sofanya, we want a level of polish, right? Why are we sitting here with full makeup in a beautiful studio? We could be, in our pajamas. We made some choices about the way that we want to present and the polished and the elevation, the aspirational nature, all these things that go into creating a brand and into a voice. And there's no such thing as perfect. And so it's like we're always dancing between that of, and I think I have it written somewhere, like done is better than perfect. And sometimes it's easier. I'll wait. It's like we don't just push it out and then fix it later. Let's wait till it's actually really ready.
Yes.
There's some more iterations that we need to see through.
Yes. And I think your threshold of that is higher than mine of what we would let go out the door.
Yeah.
And so there's that. And then
Factually true.
And then so it makes me question, how much do I up my own personal game? I never question it in the Sofanya realm. As you say, there's me, there's you, there's Sofanya. There's three entities here with different voices and different norms and ways and culture and everything, right? And you and I are fully baked. We're like near 50. So like, we're not going to change each other.
You could still,
Yeah, fair.
Change. We're always growing.
I mean, the way we warped each other's fields in our 20s versus now is a little different. But so
fair.
Maybe. I mean, we were pretty fully formed then in a lot of ways. We didn't really
and I do want to say, I'll push back on that. We are fully baked in a beautiful way.
Yeah.
And you've said, arriving in LA, I'm often grateful that I came to LA with the amount of sort of wholeness and healing and self-awareness that I have, rather than in my mid-20s when I would have maybe been crushed by some of LA.
Can you imagine you and I arriving in LA in our 20s? Trouble for LA.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And LA, and LA as it is, there's, I think living here is a different experience than when you think of LA from Toronto or other places.
My goodness. It is night and day. We can talk, let's put a pin in LA. I think that's a bigger conversation.
But I want to say that I think also we are fully baked, but we are still always growing and evolving. And I think neither of us is set in our ways. We're really open to you'll always say oh, you know what? Let me look at that.
I'm wrong. I have to change that. You're totally right all the time. I'm a big fan of I'm wrong. I don't know. I have to wait. I got to check in on that. And for me, when I don't know, I check in with my intuition and guidance. And for example, when I was like, do I really need to wear this much makeup for the podcast?
You're talking about makeup a lot today. How do you feel about it, Goddess? Do you want to take a moment?
Makeup. It's a lot of makeup.
I think you look gorgeous.
Thank you.
And don't forget, the camera always takes away half the makeup.
Fair enough.
So you look natural, you're glowing and beautiful.
And I actually love makeup.
We
and
can
I love
have everyone
getting ready.
comment and let us know.
Who likes Sophia's makeup? This is a hot topic of all the things we talk about, whether it's too much makeup. This is also
part of your, right? This is part of you stepping out in the world in a different way.
I'm always about embracing my fully expressed glory. And then I just have to go, is this my fully expressed glory? Am I just doing what LA is telling me to be? And I just don't, I'll do that to a certain degree, but I don't want to do it to the degree I go against myself or my nature or my natural style. So I'll do it to a point. And
a little bit of Botox, not a lot.
Makeup, I thought of it. Yeah, smidgen. So my grapple with the perfectionism, whether I'm supposed to go personally further into being more polished on my own personal brand versus the Sofanya brand, which I don't question and I defer to you because every time I ask the angels whether your polished, perspective is right, I get a yes and then I'm wrong. So I'm good with that. And then I was wondering for myself. And so I had my book launch of my fourth book, and I didn't know if the books were going to arrive in time for the actual event. It was sold out. It was going to be wall-to-wall people, and there might not be books there. And I remember being in a taxi on the way to go to a retreat in Mexico, just days before the event. I was going to come back and 2 days later be on stage, but my guidance was that the retreat was going to prepare me for that. And I was sitting in the taxi talking to my sister, and I said, I found 2 typos in the beginning of the book, and I don't know if the books are delayed in being delivered because they won't be perfect, and I'm supposed to be up-leveling to being perfect and not having typos. And maybe that's why it's not going to be there. It's more important to not have books than have books with typos. And she said, that doesn't sound like you at all. That is, and I was like, but maybe I'm supposed to be growing and evolving and being more polished. She's like, it doesn't feel right. She's like, why don't you feel into it? And I was like, actually, this time I get that's wrong. For me and my books, my way is to have a couple typos, but have the books there. And I kid you not, as I'm talking to her, I get a ding. And I get, your books are delivered. They were supposed to be there maybe a day or two before or maybe a day or two after. They came 2 weeks early. On the moment I was telling my sister, you know what, it's okay not to be perfect. It's better to have the typos and have the books. I don't know that a person noticed. She's like, I just see you signing the books going, by the way, there's a couple typos, but enjoy the book anyways. She's like, that's my sister. So it's interesting that there is a difference between us and me and you. And that's perfect. That's how it can and should be, I think.
Yeah. And I think for all of us, it's just being aware of it, right? And knowing the dance of is this stopping me? Am I not? Because perfectionism is really rooted in, it's like, why do we procrastinate, right? What is holding us back from expressing, from being out in the world? Is it really that I'm actually afraid of what people will say? Like, it's usually rooted in deeper things. And I think for any of my clients, I just ask for the curiosity and the inquiry of, can I refine this and keep it moving forward? It doesn't need to be perfect. I was talking to my coach yesterday about something I'd created, and I was like, well, I could go back and record it and do it better. And she was like, what if we just refine it, keep it as it is, but, not go back and redo anything?
How'd that feel?
Great. I was like, perfect. So I think
there's no right or wrong. There's just an inquiry with each choice. And each inquiry is going to give you a feeling of expansiveness or collapse, or my angels will be like, accept that you're wrong here, or no, hold tight on who you are here. I think each one, if we can approach it without being, this is who I am and I am not changing and I am rigidly this.
Right.
And I know from my small town, where I grew up, it was always like, you'd hear people say, oh, she's changed, he's changed. And so there was this, I think there is this cultural pressure to like, don't go too different, don't, et cetera. But then one year, it said, they didn't change, they grew. And I'm growing. And I actually do want to reinvent myself. And actually, a lot of women I admire constantly reinvent themselves.
Right.
So I think there's an embracing of what this evolution of the self means and how can you stay authentic while always growing and finding new expression.
Yeah.
And I think it's a beautiful dance we do together and support each other in, and we stay in the inquiry together.
And can we accept that not everyone's going to like it?
Oh boy.
Because I think that might be sometimes the thing that stops us, right? Is the need to be liked and accepted. And in today's world of like, the more you're out there in the world of social media and really embracing, I saw someone, a coach that I follow post and said, I know when people are commenting that they don't like it, that I'm actually doing something right.
Yeah.
Knowing I won't be for everybody but really being able to be with that and sort of know that, especially on the bigger stage of life in social media or in the bigger context, it's not the high school schoolyard anymore, right? It's just like, is it okay to not be liked and still be okay with who I am?
I feel like I made that choice in my mid-20s when I decided to get divorced really young and early, only after being married for 9 months with someone who was wonderful. And we mutually decided we're just too young for this. We did, what the small town next step after college or after university thing was to get married. And it was a huge thing of, I'm going to be really judged for this. And I was the first I knew. And I have not been motivated or deterred by whether I'm liked or not. I mean, standing for a sustainability movement, I had haters from every direction. And very much terrified to put myself out there in a bigger way, not to not be liked, but to be actually attacked. So I wasn't never afraid of not being liked. I long ago accepted that. Just more so, I don't want to deal with the energy and the need to handle any sort of public discourse around who I am or what I'm doing. I'd rather just sit on my quiet lake and write and read. You could come visit from your luxury ranch and maybe ride a horse over. That's nice. That sounds so much more interesting than dealing with some conversation I don't want to have. It was basically, it's going to take up my bandwidth. More so, am I going to be liked or not liked? And I was...
So what did you do to move past that?
I am, interestingly, when I feel into it and make sure I am 100% over it because I'm doing this, is that I'm not going to deal with it. That's it. I'm actually not going to deal with it. And I've had a couple comments come on my Facebook that I don't like. And by I don't like, I mean, they're not in kind spirit. They're not in an engaging debate of different perspectives and values. It's not a conversation. It's things like, you are horrible. You should be doing this. That's just mean.
Right. And to be fair, a lot of people in the comment section on social media are just there to be mean.
They're just there to be mean. And then I realized social media is my living room. And so I literally just deleted the comment and unfriended the friend. And
you're out.
Yeah. And it's not that I am upset with you or hate you or don't like that you don't like me. I actually understand that you don't like this and this is confronting. That's natural. I was a professor where we'd get into very heated discussions, but all in the spirit of sharing and growing. So I don't have a problem with anyone's experience of what I put out there. I just don't want to handle a million experiences. I'm trying to handle this experience, and I'm very close to your experience. I can't handle more. So for me, it was just like, with love, I actually deleted it and sent it, and with the energy of love, good, basically, I'm so sorry. Good luck on your journey. I'm busy here.
Yeah.
So
I have such respect for creators that I see that just turn off the comments. Or, have someone moderating that says, this is what we'll accept in this space. And like you said, it is your corner of the world, your living room, your grid, right? And you're welcome to be here and share. And there's certain practices that just aren't welcome here. And that's the sovereignty and the agency, I think, I always respect.
Yep. And it's wonderful because of intuition. I can tune in and feel whether the person's energy, someone can say the exact same thing and I can feel whether they're just trying to be mean or whether they're really just have a worldview and they're questioning it. And I'm willing to engage in that kind of conversation. So I just feel like as long as it's good spirited and going towards learning and growth, let's talk. Yeah. But that took years. I mean, that was years and years of seeing a comment like that and feeling very responsible to engage it and thinking about it before I did. And that was, so it's been a progression of I think I've been guided to scale my work to the world for about 7 years now. And the first 3 years just was in knots about it. Why do I have to do this? I don't want to do this. I want to stay in Portugal and paint paintings. I don't want to come to America. I don't want to go to LA. I mean, I was seeing LA on my path. Maybe this is a good time to circle to talking about LA.
I was actually going to circle back to sort of saying, I think with the theme of the goddess and the Galentines, letting go of perfectionism and celebrating each other, right? That on the opposite, right? We can sit on social media and tear down people,
Oof.
or we can choose to celebrate each other. This is a beautiful day. I love the idea of taking back, so much of Valentine's. People feel like, oh, maybe I don't have the love of my life, or I don't have a partner.
You're a love of my life. We are not lesbians. And you're still a love of my life.
If it hasn't happened yet, folks, don't wait around. But, and this is a great conversation around like centering the feminine friendship. We are kind of taught to center the romantic over everything else. I watched these two young friends on Instagram sort of saying like, is it okay to move to a different city to be near your bestie? We would move to be with a boyfriend or with a partner, and really like reclaiming and recentering the female friendship as vital, not just secondary, but as central to our lives. And that's what today is for.
I think
Galentine's
so too. Galentine's Day.
Should we cheers with our strawberries?
Oh my gosh, strawberry cheers. Yay. And to Grandpa.
Grandpa. Thanks, Grandpa.
Thanks, Grandpa.
We're not actually going to eat the strawberry.
Because you said no eating on camera. That's not polished or perfect.
I think Teresa would be upset about the strawberry in your teeth later.
We'd have to get the lip gloss out again, and I just need more of that.
It's true.
When you said celebrating each other, I instantly thought of what you introduced to me, a term, the sister wound, the sisterhood wound.
Sister wound, yeah.
Can you talk about that? When I saw the first I ever heard that is when you posted about it a few years ago.
I think of it really as just the way, you know a lot about the patriarchy and how what you just mentioned about, the goddess culture being wiped out. And in the patriarchy and in our conditioning for survival, women are often pitted against each other. We have been taught to, be in competition with each other. And many women have experience of being betrayed by their friends. There's deep wounding around friendship, around female friendship. And healing that and being with women in a way where we truly celebrate each other.
That's the antidote.
Is
the healing of the sisterhood wound is the celebration of each other. Would you say that?
I would say that. And I would say it's not something you just paint over and gloss like, oh, I'm celebrating my sisters. It's actually taking some time and really doing some work around like, where has this shown up for me? What conflicts have I had in the past with women? What have they been about? Like, how were we taught to move through those conflicts? And where in my life can I celebrate another woman and really mean it?
Yeah,
and
it's
celebrate,
a deep place.
Right? There's so much
it's not tokenism.
No. And can I celebrate you even if I'm not on the journey with you? Even if you're knowing
making money that I'm not making, having a boyfriend when I want one and I don't have one, losing weight while I'm gaining it.
Right. I think there's two things there of like, I always notice if I feel some envy or if I feel like, oh, I wish I was doing that, that's good information. That's for me to go, okay, is there something that's calling me toward a path like that? If I see someone who's like doing a film in LA and I'm living in Chicago and I go, ooh, I wish I was doing that. Okay, well, that's information. What about that person's success is calling you forward? Can I have that and be in that experience while also celebrating her win?
Yes. And this is factual in that as a professor for 10 years, I had a lot of 18 to 22-year-old students, right? They're at that peak time where they're finding their way to their thing. They don't quite know their genius yet. And often a student would come up to me and be agitated by a speaker that we watched or someone that was keynoting up there, And every single time I noticed and watched their career afterwards that they were meant to do that thing, that they were meant to do a keynote, that they were meant to put a book out, that they were meant to talk about that topic. And the agitation was that there's a part of them that knew it that wasn't awake yet. And so I've noticed exactly what you're talking about for sure. And then going back to the patriarchy part, as I do.
Favorite topic.
Why
is it your favorite topic?
I'll share that actually.
Yeah, I think it's actually a perfect moment and time, especially on today.
Yeah, and with Grandpa on the other side, who was, the patriarch of our family and did it very differently with soft sensitivity and emotional connection and availability and vulnerability. Grandpa had a lot of these feminine qualities in his masculine role for a lot of us. And that is beyond patriarchy right there. So patriarchy, the reason I care about it so much is so many of us think something's wrong with me or something's wrong with us when it's really programmed by patriarchy. All of us, each individual and all the dynamics we've inherited and we're suffering from them, and we turn on ourselves and each other rather than turning on patriarchy, the programming that got us there. And so when for most of 12,000 years, women have only been able to eat and have a roof over their head and not be physically harmed if a man called her his property. Fact. I mean, women can only have bank accounts in their name decades ago. So if you have a quality in you that helps you survive and procreate and raise those children, that quality gets passed on and concentrated. That's biological evolution. We have 12,000 years where you beating out another woman to be given favor by a man, that is so normalized in our DNA expression and our behavioral expression that until we recognize it, we can't transcend it together. And patriarchy is not a man problem or a woman problem. It is a societal problem and a biological programming problem that we can all bring consciousness to and go, let's not do that. So when you say, let's celebrate, just that act of turning towards the celebration starts to deprogram, decolonize the sisterhood. I feel passionately about this, of course. Yeah. And it's interesting when you're talking about when a woman or someone is doing something and I'm not, and it brings up something in you. Interestingly, and I've said this before and no one believes me, I think you didn't even believe me, I've never felt jealous of another woman. I don't know why, but whenever they were doing something beyond what I was doing, like I literally remember being size 12 when I first got to Hawaii. I went from size 4 to size 12 in like 6 months or something. Just the intensity of all the change, and let's be honest, just eating cupcakes a lot to handle it.
With strawberries.
Yeah, sometimes. Any cupcake on my path. But I remember I met a woman, a girl, like a friend, who was a perfect size 4, and I gave her some of my jeans that I didn't fit anymore. And she was wearing them out at a party that the two of us went to, and every guy was all interested in her. Every girl wanted to be friends with her. No one even saw me. And I remember the whole time just going, wow, she's never had this before. She had never worn, fitted jeans before, and she had fake eyelashes on. Like it was just this big moment for her where she kind of went to the next level of her expression, and I helped her do it before we went out. And all I remember the whole night is going like, I've had moments like this and she's never had it, and it's her turn, and I just get to be sitting here in her glory shining, love and adoration along with all the other fans. And I just was like, this is a role I don't usually get. This is very cool. It never crossed my mind to be jealous. And stupidly, when the roles are reversed, I expected other friends to be celebrating, oh, this is my moment. And sometimes that did not happen.
Does not happen.
With you in any way. And all of the women I've been friends with, I mean, got the OG best friend Wendy since I was 13. We got Carrie since I was 19. I have women friends that have been there. I have the tier, as Mindy says, best friend is a tier, not a person. And all of them have the same thing in common. And I would say our whole Toronto crew of a dozen women we're still friends with for 25 plus years. We celebrate each other. If there's anything we do, we celebrate each other, even when the other person's doing something we want to do and we're not doing, or having a moment in the spotlight that we haven't had in a while or don't have.
It's trusting, right? Trusting I'll have my moment too, and this is...
Or maybe not even.
Or maybe,
Actually, to me, it's not that. It's literally just like, I am so lit up by seeing another woman shine that it actually doesn't land on me what my experience is. I automatically go into the role of adoration and celebration if I see a woman shine, and I don't compare. I actually don't compare it. I just get into reveling in her beauty, and it's interesting, right?
Yeah. I think that's unique. I think a lot of people
That's what
compare.
people tell me. Yeah.
The mortals tell you.
I see that. So I do compare sometimes, but it also goes to inspiration. Right. And it goes to inspiration. I'll be like, wait a minute.
Is that possible?
Is that possible? Yeah. From watching my students saying, if it's lighting up something in me of agitation or want or desire or an expansive lit up. It's true. Mm-hmm. It's meant to inspire me. Can we translate differences into inspiration and celebration? I would say beyond, you really named the celebrating each other part. I would also add into that if inspiration and celebration is the answer to the sisterhood wound. And to know that it actually isn't a me, you problem. It's a 12,000 years of patriarchy problem.
Right. But it's a me, you solution.
Oh, yes. Every moment we choose me and you and the love. Yeah. I love that.
I do notice you use your right hand a lot and you're tied down by that mic on that side.
And I'm really, geez.
You're like really trying not to hit the mic.
So I'm going like this and interesting.
Just saying.
Just noticing.
Yep.
Just saying. The camera will tell all. It's an experience. We should talk about that and the perfectionism and the sisterhood and the things that the sister.
We can talk about it in the next episode when you're back on this side.
Oh no, you had 4 episodes on this side. I'm saying the whole day.
Oh, is that how it goes?
That's the side part.
Interesting. Interesting. Every 4 episodes we switch.
Yeah, we could talk about that actually. Like
perfectionism and the perfect side.
Well, I think we're talking about how we can be pitted against each other and we can turn things into competition in the sisterhood wound. And there's the moment we both realize that this is our good side and we both want to be sitting in this chair with this side to the camera.
You actually realized, you're like, actually, I think I want to be sitting there. And then you're like, let me tune in.
And I said, yep, the angels are right. I should sit on that side.
And then you were like, what about my angels? They say I should sit on that side. What do we do?
And then we were like, in the first time in 25 years, we're going to have to call in an impartial third party as a deal breaker, tiebreaker, as we did in our operating agreement for our business.
Yeah. What happens when we hit a deal breaker?
So what did we decide to do? It was your suggestion. We're going to take turns. This is what sisterhood goddesses do.
Yeah.
They give each other.
We both have a good side. Although I might have said I don't have a bad side.
I think we did agree on that.
Yeah.
But you did notice I'm trying to use my right hand.
You are.
I mean, it's kind of, so, I might choose mobility over my good side. We'll see. What's going to happen on the Everyday Magic podcast.
Stay tuned because every 4 episodes we will be switching chairs.
Unless
we might even make a poll and you can decide.
Which side is the better? Who do you want to see?
Where do you like us?
Whose good side do you want to see more?
It's true.
Whose good side is better than
do we have a
others?
good side? Is this all just nonsense?
Do we? Yeah.
Somebody told you 25 years ago you have a good side?
The angels told me yesterday I have a good side.
Oh, well.
Yeah.
That's hard to argue with.
Let's see if the audience agrees, though. They might just
I don't think you have a bad side.
I doubt this whole angel thing now. I
don't think you have a bad side. I look at both sides of your face every day.
Do you celebrate both sides of my face?
I do.
Are you inspired by both sides?
Both sides of your face are beautiful.
This is the sisterhood. Yes. We're doing it right now.
Yes, it's true. And truly, it is like a beautiful exploration of.
Do you feel like back in goddess culture, they talked about which side was the good side and who got to face the other goddesses when they sat in ceremony?
Where should we sit in ceremony? I don't know.
Tell us more about goddess culture. Let's wrap up this episode with more talk about the goddess culture, which was literally tens of thousands of years versus the last few thousand years, where patriarchy took all of its symbols and pushed it out. How can we bring her back today?
Yeah, the goddess it's interesting because I think that, we call each other goddess, and it's sort of one of those words. Like I said, we did a meditation yesterday and I said priestess is a word too that feels really like I own it, but I'm also, for many years, I've been kind of like, do I? What does it mean to be a priestess, a goddess, to reclaim these codes, these identities that have been wiped out for so long
or demonized. Or made bad, witchy, scary, threatening, evil.
We were talking earlier about the snake. So it's the year of the snake. And the snake has always been a symbol of the goddess, of the feminine. And I think it was St. Patrick who in Ireland said something about like wiping out the snakes. And it was really about wiping out the goddess culture.
You told me this when you showed me your tattoo.
Yep.
I don't know if you can show the camera the tattoo. I don't know how that works.
Which camera, where?
You know better than me.
Yeah, I got the.
So when you had the snake on your arm and you showed that to me whenever you got that years ago, I was like, why a snake?
Mm-hmm.
And you told me the St. Patrick about chasing out the snake, which was really chasing out the feminine. And why is the snake the feminine symbol?
And I also want to add to that I had in a meditation, I had done a hypnotherapy meditation, and I saw lying in the grass and the snake coming toward me and sort of just becoming one with my body. And I remember coming out and thinking like, what is that about? And I talked to one of my mentors who knows a ton about astrology and is someone I have in my life and business. And she was like, that's the feminine. That is reclaiming the feminine, the goddess culture within yourself, really in your own embodiment. So why is the snake the feminine? I don't know. It's a good question.
I went and researched it.
Okay, well, good. I mean,
let me tell you what
anyone's going to.
Let me just tell you. So, when you look on the medical symbol, it's the two snakes going up around the staff.
Yep.
And it really is the Kundalini symbol. Mm-hmm. There is this idea that there's this energy coiled at the base of your spine until you bring conscious breathing and presence to draw it up from the spine through the chakras and circulate it. You haven't activated this powerful energy source. Mm-hmm. And so since it was coiled like a snake and moved like a snake, that's where some of the symbolism came from. And that's one place that patriarchy didn't crush it out, is it's allowed to stay part of the medical symbols, which we can still recognize today. So it's really about activating that inner energy that's available to all of us, because the feminine does not belong to the heterosexual female gender.
Right.
There's a feminine energy source in all genders. There's a masculine energy source in all genders. And the one that really rises up was associated with the feminine.
And I think that's a great distinction about the divine feminine and the divine masculine, as opposed to what we think of as
man, woman,
right,
gender.
Yeah.
Yeah. Right.
And we all have those two energies within us.
Mm-hmm. And they're sacred. And when you say divine, to me, divine means source energy. That is the creator energy that we come from and we will return to, whatever that means.
And those two energies can be harmonized.
Yes. And we're most healthy when they do.
Right.
Yes.
And many of us, though, are living out of that harmony.
Yes.
Right? More in our masculine.
Yeah. And women are pushed to be hyper feminine, to not have direction, to not. When I say direction, I mean there are women that I know that are living in the softness and in the amorphous and in the creative, and they don't want to look at a spreadsheet or a bank account or really drive a business, for example. And I know women that are hyper masculine that don't know how to allow and tap into their intuition. And I know men and women and of every gender. Right. Let's just say the whole spectrum. I know people that are either really far one way or really far the other way. And no one really teaches us that we have both and we can plan and have flow. We can use our logic and be very spreadsheety, and we can also really surrender into our intuition. And I just feel like the way that we know this is every single person I've ever talked to. And I say, do you remember a time that you did something impulsively and emotionally and you didn't check in with your mind and you regretted it? Everyone's like, yeah. And I'm like, do you remember a time when your gut knew and you had that body knowing, but you overrode it because of your mind? They're like, yeah. And I'm like, you have both. Imagine if you stopped and asked both your mind and your intuition. That is the harmony of masculine and feminine that we all have.
Yeah. So reclaiming the goddess culture then is also about deprogramming, right? It's a we solution, whether you're a man or a woman, a they, right? No matter what gender, it's like we can reclaim the harmonization of our two sacred energies.
Yes.
And know that by reclaiming the goddess culture and the goddess mythology, right? And the stories and the sacred energy of the goddess, we're all freeing ourselves from the system that wanted to eradicate it.
Absolutely. Because if you look at business and you look at home life and you do surveys in America, everyone will say the same problems. I don't have an emotional connection with my partner. I don't feel seen. I don't feel connected with. That's what people complain about at home. At work, people are like, I feel like a cog in a machine. I feel unseen. I don't feel like I can be myself and express my emotion, and I'm not allowed to be vulnerable at work and not know and make mistakes. All of those are feminine qualities. Everyone is saying at work and at home, the feminine's been squeezed out, and I feel empty and flattened because of it, no matter what gender. All genders are saying it. So when all of us welcome the feminine back, when every gender can say, I'm allowed to be vulnerable and I'm allowed to flow and I'm allowed to be experimental and make mistakes and be seen in that journey and have the emotions that come along with it, all of us are welcoming the feminine back. And I feel like the studies are showing everyone's hurting when we don't. So the antidote is to welcome her back in. She's Mother Nature.
Right.
We are all nature. She is Mother Nature. Let her course through.
Beautiful.
So on Galentine's Day, we welcome the divine feminine back. We honor the divine masculine in my grandpa and how he embraced the divine feminine by being emotionally available and vulnerable. And
he was really your caretaker.
I lived with him till I was 7. He was my nurturer. He was the divine feminine and the divine masculine in one human in a way I never have seen before or since. I mean, the way he shows up with his intellect, like I remember telling him, Grandpa, this person hurt me. And they never apologized. And he said, just because he doesn't own up to it doesn't mean he doesn't own it. Wisdom freed me. See ya. Mic drop, Grandpa. Right?
Yeah.
Yeah. And when I'd show up, he could feel me. And he would just be like, I remember being 5. And every time I went to him, he would be like, did the dog nip at you? And I'd get on his lap and he would just hold me with presence, not trying to solve it, not trying to use the masculine, just presence, just amorphous presence. Did Grandma get upset with you? It was always a little smile, a softness, and a holding. And the soft, nurturing vulnerability and empathy and emotion that he allowed me to have without needing to fix it or solve it. And then when I needed something fixed and solved, he brought the masculine.
Oh, Grandpa.
Oh, Grandpa. Goddess Day and Grandpa and you and this.
To celebrate.
Thank you.
And he really had a vision and such pride in watching you create this business, this company. He's like, I need to go and let you work on your company.
Last words he ever spoke to me, I showed him our pitch deck. I said, Grandpa, I've been guided to make a company. I've been guided to share a thing called a pitch deck with people that will give us money to make the company. And he's like, oh, really? Is this going to give you money? And I'm like, I hope so. And I said, but
when they see this, they will.
Wouldn't you? So, and I showed, he was 96. He didn't have a lot of bandwidth for a lot of my long versions of things as I do.
And just to let the audience in, you got on and played Scrabble with him every day.
Yeah. Yep.
On Zoom.
Yep. We had a ritual where I would always say, hi, Grandpa, what's the weather like today? And he'd look at the calendar, he'd look at the thermometer, cold in Canada, and we got an inch of snow. And then it would be like, what sports games are you watching? Oh, the Jays are doing well. So we talked sports because that's what you do in small town Canada. And then we moved on to Scrabble. And then I would get time at the end where he was available to really connect. And I would just be like, so what do you got going the rest of the day, Grandpa? Can I tell you a story? And he was wide open, and I'd always get some time that he was very available. And just, being the age he was, it couldn't be forever. I can sure tell a long version of a story. But I would be as succinct. So I was like, I tried to do the short version. By the way, Grandpa, I got guided to do this company, and I'm going to show them these things. I want to see the first page. I thought we'd get the first page. And he looked at it, and he's like, well, that's interesting. I really like it. Can I see the next page? Showed it to him, talked him through it. Can I see the next page? 52 slides of a pitch deck. Grandpa watched. I got the extended Grandpa presence I've never seen since I was younger. And at the end, he goes, wow, I really better let you go. You got to work on your business. And then he died. The last word spoken to me. And I remember looking at you going, I have to do this. This is the legacy. I don't do this just for me. He left so I'd have the bandwidth to do this. And I'm gonna hold that sacred and do it and go for it with everything I have.
Yeah. And I remember you even saying this, when you have something in your day, every single day, for 15, 20 years. I don't know how many years
Grandpa
you did
and I did the daily thing. We did weekly until COVID and then daily. So for 10 years, it was almost daily.
Yeah. It's a big part of your day. And I remember you saying he just opened up, right? He sort of stepped out of that space for me to put something in it. And, when you say it opened up bandwidth, like it literally did create space for you to create this business and with his blessing.
Absolutely. And I feel like, remember the first 3 weeks I was just walking into things. Like we went to a department store, and you were like, "Where's your purse?" And I'm like, "I have no idea." I went to wander through, and I just set my purse down somewhere. I remember just being at the counter the first day after he died and turning on the coffee's just pouring on the counter. I never put a cup under it. And I just sit down, and it was like, what is happening? And what I saw, the angel showed me, is it's like there was a plant with roots in the ground that had gone all the way through me up to heaven. I don't even know what heaven is, but up to the, source of where we come from. And it was being pulled out from me. And it was the core energy holding Grandpa had given me from being my caretaker and just always being in my life, and then being my very best friend in the tier. Grandpa was definitely the best friend here the last decade. And it was being pulled out of me, and I was going to be an energy system without him for the first time in 50 years. And I was literally physically bumbling around. And so that was a thing for sure. And I remember when someone else I know, when their father died, I did a reading for them, and I said, it's like there was this sort of hanging dead root, like dead branch, and when it got cut off, you had the energy to shoot to the sky. And I shared this with someone, and they said there's indigenous cultures that actually say that when someone crosses, it's so that you can like sprout into your purpose with the leftover energy. And you talked about it being different than other deaths for me. And I'll just simply say that, when my brother died, I was immediately on the floor, curled up in a ball, screaming. I'm not going to say I just was like instantly talking to him, but 5 minutes later, when I started to come out of the extreme reaction, he came to me. He was right where you're sitting, and he said, "Sis, do not worry about me. Your brother's off to the next adventure. I was done on this adventure. You have a lot more, and I'm going to be with you every step of the way. Your brother's off to the next fun thing." That was always his thing. "Let's off to the next fun thing," sis. Then he continued to come and talk to me and I'd go for meals, and he'd come and sit with me the whole time. We'd talk and tells me jokes, gets me laughing. He's a personal trainer. He trains me at the gym. Someone came up to me and said, "Why is your form so perfect?" And it was a 70-ish-year-old man who said that he works with people in the personal training industry, and that he's like, "Are you a trainer? Because I've never seen someone's form so perfect." And I didn't want to tell him my brother's telling me the whole time and adjusting me. So
why not?
I know. Looking back, I don't know why. This is before I was as out as I am now. I basically said, I'm a mechanical engineer, so I can really feel the physics of it, but I can, and it's true. And my brother was guiding me into that perfect form in physics. But he was like with me all the time. And so what I would say to Grandpa, and all of my friends that have crossed, including our mutual friend, comes to me and talks to me as if we're having a lunch date or going shopping together. And I kept telling Grandpa, "Don't worry about when you cross, Grandpa, because we're going to get to hang out. It's just going to continue." And but Joe and I, my brother, we run in my dreams, and we'll play Scrabble together. We'll be able to go for walks together. He wasn't really mobile anymore. And I'd say, whenever you're ready to cross, it's okay, because we'll just keep hanging out. And then he crossed, and that didn't happen. And nothing prepared me. For a decade, I had expected Grandpa and I would hang out even more, just like my brother and I. And he came once, and you were there. And I cried and cried and cried. And he said, "I'm going far away. You don't need me anymore. I really need to leave you space." He really needed to leave. And since then, I've only got signs like everyone else gets, but no more full conversations with Grandpa. Little imprints of signs and moments and holdings. Things like strawberry being mentioned today. He's not gone, but we don't talk the way I expected to. And there's no support group out there for someone who thought for 10 years they were going to talk to their closest person afterwards. So I'm just sitting there just reeling from this unexpected reality. And you said you're kind of having a more human version of death.
Experience of death.
Yeah. And it's beautiful. I call in his energy and let it hold me and feel it, but not direct conversations.
Well, we celebrate him today.
We celebrate him.
And we celebrate the goddess, and we celebrate each other. The feminine, the female friendships.
The celebration and the inspiration. Yeah. This has been beautiful. Thank you, goddess. Thank you for the card. Thank you for the...
Yeah.
All of it.
That's the Everyday Magic podcast for today. Don't forget to like, follow, and subscribe so you don't miss an episode. See you next time.